Alien girl shocked by human underwear. You wear this all day? Jax had been hurtling through the void for 17 cycles, counting the stale, nutrient-paced calories and the deepening ache in his lower back. When the asteroid field decided his transport ship was surplus to requirements, one moment, silent, empty space stretched before his cockpit view. The next, the proximity alarm screamed a death knell. He hadn't even had time to brace properly before the first impact ripped through the starboard engine pod, twisting metal into abstract art, and sending the craft tumbling like a broken child's toy. He managed to jettison the main cargo module. Not that it mattered now. Before the second hit, larger, deadlier, tearing open the hull and sucking the very air from his lungs. His last conscious thought was a silent curse aimed at the outdated navigation charts. Command had given him the ironic splash of lukewarm coffee across his face. He woke to sand. Coarse, burning, endless sand, and silence. Utter, profound, alien silence. His survival suit was shredded, a testament to the forces that had flung him here. But miraculously, his comms unit still blinked a weak, dying light. No signal, nothing. He pushed himself up, every muscle screaming in protest. The landscape shimmered under a sun that wasn't Earth-familiar, painting the dunes in hues of ochre and deep violet. Jagged rock formations, like broken teeth, clawed at the sky in the distance. He was alive. How? He had no idea. But alone. Terribly, utterly alone. He spent the next 3 days walking, conserving water from his suit's emergency supply, rationing the last energy bar. He saw strange, fleeting shadows in the distance, heard unsettling, skittering sounds beneath the sand at night, but no sign of intelligent life, no sign of rescue, just the crushing weight of his isolation and the sun's relentless glare. On the 4th day, he stumbled, not from exhaustion, though he was close. His boot snagged on something hard, buried just beneath the surface. He knelt, scraping away the sand with trembling hands. It was stone, intricately carved, part of a larger structure buried deep. Hope, a fragile, dangerous thing, flickered within him. He dug with renewed urgency, following the lines of the stone, uncovering steps leading down into the cool, dark earth. The air grew heavier, cooler, carrying a faint, unfamiliar scent like dry spice and ozone. He descended into the gloom, the light from the surface fading quickly. The steps led to a chamber, vast and silent. Pillars carved with symbols he didn't understand, held up a ceiling, lost in the shadows, and in the center of the chamber, bathed in a soft, pulsating light that seemed to emanate from the air itself. She waited. She wasn't human. Her form was slender, elegant, encased in robes that seemed woven from spun moonlight. Her skin, where visible, held a faint, shifting iridescence, like oil on water, and her eyes, large and luminous, glowed with an inner light that changed color subtly with her breath. She held a long staff-like object that pulsed in time with the light around her, her gaze intense and ancient, fixed on him, taking in his tattered suit, his dirt-streaked face, the ragged edges of his sanity. He raised a hand, a universal gesture of non-aggression, hoping she understood. She didn't move, didn't speak, just watched him, her luminous eyes tracking his every twitch. The silence stretched, thick with tension and incomprehension. He felt utterly exposed, vulnerable in a way he hadn't even felt, crashing. Finally she spoke. Her voice was low, resonant, like chimes in a deep well. The sounds were alien, musical, but somehow through some trick of translation tech in his suit, or maybe something inherent in the chamber's energy, her words formed meaning in his mind. You, this? Her luminous gaze dropped to his chest, then lower, to the exposed fabric of his underlayer beneath the torn survival suit, his tattered t-shirt, his faded cargo pants, and through the rents, glimpses, Chudgeon, his underwear. He blinked, confusion momentarily overriding his fear. Of all the things she could ask, the technology, the crash, his species, his intent. She asked about his underwear. He glanced down, then back at her, a faint, bewildered smile touching his lips. Judge Tom's. It's kind of standard issue. Comfortable, you know? Her glow deepened slightly. a visible ripple of something he couldn't identify. Surprise? Disgust? Curiosity? You wear this? She repeated, the musical notes in her voice conveying a tone of absolute disbelief. All day? He felt a sudden, absurd wave of awkwardness. Well, usually under other clothes. Obviously, keeps things sorted. Secure? He gestured vaguely at his midsection. She tilted her head, the light in her eyes shifting to a soft, curious gold. The question hung in the air, absurd and disorienting. He had crashed on an alien world, met its seemingly powerful inhabitant, and the first cultural exchange revolved around his worn-out briefs. Her name, he learned, was Kaylin, or something close to the sounds his translator cobbled together. She was a custodian of the arid shrines, bound by ancient ritual to the protection of this buried place and the energies within it. The structure he had stumbled into was part of a vast subterranean network, connecting the surface shrines that marked critical points in their ancestors' migration across this harsh land. The chamber he was in was the Heartstone Chamber, a place of resonance and judgment. Her task, she explained with a formal, almost cold precision, was to evaluate him. His presence here was an intrusion, unprecedented and potentially catastrophic. He was a disruption to the delicate balance of the shrine's energy, and by extension to the fragile state of her people. Her words were like polished stones, smooth and carefully placed, utterly devoid of the casual warmth he was used to. She spoke of bloodlines, of oaths sworn to stone and light, of duties that transcended individual wants. He listened, trying to parse the complex cultural concepts through the sometimes garbled translation, feeling like an ape stumbling through a library. He tried humor. Look, I didn't exactly book a ticket here. My ride kind of fell apart. He gestured upwards towards where the surface was. She didn't smile. Her luminous eyes remained fixed on him, unwavering. Your arrival was resonant, she said, the word resonant carrying a weight that the translation couldn't quite capture. It triggered dormant frequencies within the Heartstone. Frequencies tied to the pairing rites. He felt a prickle of unease. Pairing rites? He knew enough about alien cultures, even from basic interstellar primers, to know that pairing could mean anything from symbolic alliance to forced mating. Her light deepened to a soft violet. The shrines require a custodial pairing during times of critical imbalance, to anchor the ancestral resonance against disruption. She paused, her gaze growing distant, as if looking at something far away. Our bloodline is weakened. The rites have been dormant for generations. Your arrival, she looked back at him, her eyes a piercing blue. It has awakened them. You are entangled, entangled, entangled. That sounded just peachy. Entangled how, exactly? She hesitated, a subtle shift in the air around her the only sign of her internal process. The Heartstone resonates with your presence. It reads, compatibility, not of species, but of essential energy. She gestured to his chest again. The undergarments, they are strange, yes, but your core resonance, Don expected. A counterpoint, he couldn't help a dry chuckle. So my undies are weird, but my essential energy is a counterpoint. Thanks, I think. Her lack of reaction solidified that his humor was entirely lost on her. This was going to be a long gig. She explained that the disruption she mentioned wasn't just his arrival. It was the encroaching influence of the Shadow Sect, a rival bloodline, corrupting the ancient ways, seeking to seize control of the shrine's power. They believe the ancestral energy should be controlled, weaponized, not merely protected and nurtured as the custodians did. And his arrival, by triggering the dormant rites, had inadvertently created a focal point, a potential pairing that could either revitalize the custodians or provide the Shadow Sect with a new vulnerability to exploit. They will seek you, Kaylin stated, her voice losing some of its formal calm, replaced by a low urgency, to understand why the Heartstone resonates, to control it, to control us. He ran a hand over his face, gritty with sand. Great. So I crash land, trip over ancient rituals, and now I'm bait in an alien civil war. He looked at Kaylin, at her luminous form and ancient eyes. What happens now? She held his gaze. You must remain here, within the shrines, protected, until the rites can determine your suitability. Suitability for what? Protection or something else? The question hung heavy between them, unspoken but potent. He was a fish out of water, caught in currents he couldn't see, let alone understand, and his survival suddenly depended on the judgment of an alien woman who seemed more interested in his underwear than his story. His confinement within the shrines wasn't unpleasant, exactly, but it was utterly alien. Kalen assigned him to a chamber near the Heartstone, a cool, stone room carved with more of the intricate symbols. The air hummed with a low energy he could feel on his skin. Food was brought to him, nutrient paste, similar to his own, but flavored with strange, sweet spices. Water was pure, cool, drawn from deep wells the shrines protected. He saw no other beings, only Kalen, who visited him at irregular intervals. Each visit was a continuation of the evaluation. She asked him questions. Strange, probing questions that seemed less interested in facts and more in his emotional state, his reactions to hypothetical situations, his sense of self. "What is your greatest loss?" she asked once, her eyes a deep, probing violet. He thought of his family, light years away, likely believing him dead. He thought of the life he wouldn't return to. "Everything," he said simply. "What drives you?" Another time, her glow a determined red. He shrugged. "Survival, I guess, and maybe a stubborn refusal to let things beat me." She would often observe him silently, watching him pace the chamber, examine the carvings or attempt to communicate with his dead comms unit. He felt like an exhibit. He tried to turn the table. "What about you, Kalen? What drives you?" Her light flickered. "Duty," she said, the word a hard, unbreakable shell. "To the shrines, to the ancestors, to the balance." "Doesn't sound like much fun," he murmured. Her gaze sharpened. "Fun is irrelevant. There is only the balance, and the threats against it." The threats. The Shadow Sect. She spoke of them with a quiet intensity that conveyed deep-seated fear and hatred. They were relentless, patient, eroding the custodian's influence on the surface, seeking entry into the deeper shrine levels. His presence, she reiterated, had complicated everything. He was a variable they hadn't anticipated, a potential disruptor to their plans, or perhaps a key they could turn. One cycle, she brought him a set of their garments. Flowing robes like her own, woven from a material that shimmered with internal light. "You cannot remain in these rags," she stated, indicating his tattered earth clothes. "They disrupt the resonance field." He looked at the shimmering robes. They looked beautiful, but utterly impractical for anything other than standing around looking mystical. "These look nice," he said, holding them up. "But they don't have pockets." She blinked slowly, her eyes shifting from blue to green. "Pockets? Yeah. You know, for stuff, tools, comms, snacks, lint." He rummaged in the remnants of his cargo pants pockets, producing a bent universal translator stylus, a crumpled energy bar wrapper, and a handful of gritty sand. See, essential items. Kalen observed this display with something akin to bewildered fascination. The concept of carrying small, random objects seemed utterly foreign to her. "Our garments are woven with resonance filaments," she explained patiently. "They connect the wearer to the hymen's energy. They are not designed for material accumulation." He sighed. "Right, resonance filaments over practicality. Got it." He pulled off his tattered shirt and cargo pants, feeling exposed under her steady gaze. He was down to his undergarments again. He saw her luminous eyes flick over him, the faint iridescence of her skin swirling with an intensity that was hard to interpret. She looked a bit intrigued, perplexed. He wasn't sure. He pulled on the shimmering robes. They felt cool and light against his skin, glowing around his feet. The internal light within the fabric synced faintly with the light around them in the chamber. It felt strange, powerful, and still no pockets. He smoothed down the front. "So, how do I look? Like a proper custodian?" Kalen's gaze lingered on him. Her light deepened to a warm gold, a color he hadn't seen before. "You look different," she said, her voice a little softer than usual. "The robes respond to your essential energy. Resonate with you." He wasn't sure what to say to that. His essential energy was probably just the lingering anxiety of a near-death experience and the need for a decent meal. But standing there in the ancient chamber, wearing alien robes, that shimmered with their own light. Under the watchful, luminous gaze of Kalen, custodian of the arid shrines, he felt a strange sense of connection to this place, to this woman, that went beyond logic or practicality. It was resonant. The evaluation continued, but something had shifted after he put on the robes. Kalen spent more time with him, not just observing but explaining. She showed him the intricate carvings, interpreting their meaning, tales of the ancestors' journey, their pact with the Heartstone, the prophecy of the pairing rites. She spoke of the energy lines that crisscrossed the shrines, invisible currents they manipulated through ritual and intent. He listened, fascinated despite himself, asking questions that revealed his utter ignorance of their world. So, this energy, it's like electricity? No, she would say patiently. It is life, memory, connection, like telepathy, a form of it, but deeper. It binds us to each other, to the ancestors, to the shrines. He learned about the shadow sect's philosophy, their belief that the Heartstone's energy should be a tool, a weapon, not a sacred trust. They sought to control the deep resonance, to bend it to their will, even if it meant severing the connections to the past, to the ancestors. They were gaining power on the surface, corrupting lesser shrines, their influence seeping downwards. The Heartstone, the core of the network, was their ultimate target. Kalen's duty was to it at all costs, and his presence, his unexpected resonance, had become a focal point in this struggle. The pairing rites, she explained one cycle, her light muted with worry, were meant to forge a new anchor for the Heartstone's energy during times of great flux. Two resonant souls, bound by ritual, would amplify its power, creating a shield against external disruption. She paused, looking at him. The rites are specific. They require a unique balance. And your resonance matches the forgotten patterns the Heartstone has awakened. He stared at her. You're saying I'm supposed to participate in these rites? With who? With you? Her luminous eyes met his, a flicker of something akin to vulnerability crossing her features. The Heartstone has designated you a potential partner. The word partner sounded clinical, ritualistic, devoid of any personal warmth. Potential? So I'm on a cosmic audition? She didn't respond to the sarcasm. The rites are not a choice. They are an obligation. If the Heartstone's designation is confirmed, the pairing must occur. It is the only way to secure the shrines against the shadow sect's designs. The only way to fulfill my duty. Duty again. Always duty. He felt a surge of frustration. And what about what I want? I want to get home. To my own people. Your desires are secondary, she said, her voice regaining its formal distance. The balance of the shrines, the survival of my people, the protection of the ancestral energy, these are paramount. He ran a hand through his hair. Right. Cosmic paramountcy over personal preference. Got it. He paced his chamber, the shimmering robes flowing around him. So, how does this pairing work? Is it like a marriage? A military alliance? Is there a blood oath? Do I have to wear more shimmering pocketless robes? Kalen watched him, her expression unreadable. It is a merging, she said softly, of resonance, of memory, of essential energy. The Heartstone guides the joining. It is intimate. Intimate. The word hung in the air. He looked at her luminous, alien beauty, at the weight of ancient duty she carried. Despite the absurdity of the situation, the vast cultural chasm between them, he felt a pull towards her, a strange sense of destiny he couldn't explain. His essential energy and her resonance. It was either the craziest thing he'd ever heard or the beginning of something utterly unexpected. Just then, a tremor ran through the chamber. The light around them flickered, dimming. Kalen's glow intensified, a sharp, alarmed blue. They are here, she whispered. The shadow sect. They have found a way into the outer levels. They seek the Heartstone. They seek you. The external threat had arrived, forcing the issue, accelerating the inevitable pairing. He was no longer just a castaway. He was a catalyst. The tremors continued, growing more frequent, more violent. The air in the chamber crackled with energy, both from the distressed Heartstone and from the invading shadow sect. Kalen was a whirlwind of quiet action, her formality giving way to a fierce, focused intensity. She moved with an alien grace, her shimmering robes flowing around her as she activated dormant energy conduits and sealed access points deeper within the shrines. He followed her, feeling clumsy and useless in his elegant, pocketless robes, but determined not to be a leady. "What can I do?" he asked, trying to keep his voice steady over the rumbling. She glanced back at him, her eyes a sharp, electric blue. "Your presence disrupts their resonance probes. It is, either a form of static they cannot filter. Stay close. Your chaotic energy is a shield." Chaotic energy. He supposed that was one way to describe his life. They moved through narrow, winding passages, the ancient stone groaning around them. The light from Kalen and the robes cast flickering shadows, turning the familiar, or as familiar as anything here could be, into something menacing. He heard sounds from above, scraping, cracking, the distant rhythmic pulse of alien tech forcing its way through rock. "They are relentless," Kalen said, her voice tight. "They hunger for the Heartstone's power. They believe it will grant them dominance." He stumbled as a particularly strong tremor hit, dust raining down from the ceiling. Kalen reached back, her hand closing around his arm. Her touch was cool, smooth, sending a jolt of unfamiliar energy through him. It wasn't unpleasant. Her grip was surprisingly strong. "Keep moving," she urged, pulling him along. "We must reach the inner sanctuary. The pairing rites must be completed before they breach the core." The pairing rites. Now? In the middle of an alien invasion? "Wait, now is not exactly the best time, is it?" he protested. "Best time is airless," she insisted, her grip tightening. "The Heartstone is vulnerable. The ritual must be performed to anchor its energy, to protect it, to protect us." There was no arguing with the absolute conviction in her voice. This wasn't a suggestion, it was an imperative, driven by millennia of duty and the immediate threat of annihilation. They reached a vast circular chamber, deeper and more ancient than the Heartstone chamber. In the center stood a single smooth monolith of dark stone, pulsing with a faint internal light. The air here was thick with power, almost difficult to breathe. This was the inner sanctuary. Kalen released his arm and moved towards the monolith. Her robes seemed to brighten, her own glow intensifying until she was a beacon in the flickering light. "The rites require resonance," she said, turning back to him. "Physical contact with the monolith, and with each other. The Heartstone will read our compatibility. It will bind us." He felt a knot form in his stomach. This was it. The moment of cosmic commitment, decided by a rock and some alien energy. "Okay," he said, trying to sound braver than he felt. "What exactly do I do?" She gestured to the monolith. "Place your hands upon it. Open your resonance. Allow the energy to flow." She hesitated for a moment, her luminous eyes searching his. It required just complete trust. Trust in an alien woman he'd known for maybe a week, who'd started the conversation by asking about his underwear. Trust that this ritual wouldn't vaporize him, or turn him into something else, or irrevocably bind him to a fate he never chose. But looking at the fear in her eyes, the desperate hope etched on her alien features, he knew he couldn't refuse. He was her last chance. He was their last chance. He walked towards the monolith, his legs feeling heavy. He placed his palms flat against the cool, smooth surface. A low hum vibrated through his hands, up his arms, into his chest. It wasn't just a physical sensation. It felt like a frequency, a resonance deep within him answering a call from the stone. Kalen came to stand beside him, her hand reaching out, not for the monolith, but for him. She placed her palm against his, fingers lacing unexpectedly with his own. Her skin was warm against his, faint shimmer intensifying where they touched. The humming intensified, filling the chamber, filling his head. And then, the world around them dissolved into pure light and feeling. The merging was not what he expected. There was no physical penetration, no earthly understanding of intimacy. It was a cascade of sensation, a torrent of light and memory and emotion. The monolith pulsed beneath their joined hands, and Kalen's touch became a conduit, connecting him not just to her but to the Heartstone, to the ancestral energy, to the very essence of this alien world. He saw flashes of Kalen's life, fragments of ancient rituals, the weight of her duty from childhood, the quiet grief of her people's decline, the gnawing fear of the shadow sect. He felt her isolation, her unwavering dedication, the hidden depth of feeling beneath her formal exterior. And she felt him. He felt her presence, sifting through his own memories. The blue sky of Earth, the smell of rain, the ache of loneliness in deep space, the simple joy of a shared meal with friends, the bewildered awkwardness of his initial encounter with her. His chaotic energy, his individuality, his sheer humanness, flowed into her, a jarring counterpoint to her ancient ordered existence. Yet somehow, paradoxically, a perfect fit. It was overwhelming, terrifying, and profoundly intimate. There was no hiding anything, his fears, his regrets, even the mundane thoughts about his underwear that had started this whole mess. It was all laid bare, shared in the blinding light of the merging. Her light and his essence intertwined, weaving a pattern that the Heartstone seemed to recognize and accept. He felt a shift deep within the stone, a surge of power that radiated outwards, not destructive but protective, like an invisible shield snapping into place around the sanctuary. The tremors lessened, the distant sounds of the shadow sect's intrusion fading, pushed back by the amplified resonance. As the intensity subsided, the light began to dim, returning him to the physical reality of the chamber. He stood there leaning against the monolith, gasping for air, his mind reeling from the sheer volume of shared experience. Kaelin was still beside him, her hand still holding his, though her grip was now loose, trembling slightly. Her robes had calmed, her internal glow a soft, steady gold, but her luminous eyes were wide, filled with an emotion he hadn't seen before. Awe, confusion, and a deep, unsettling vulnerability. "We merged," she whispered, her voice raspy, utterly stripped of its formality. The Heartstone accepted. Us. The word felt strange, weighty. They were us now, bound by ritual, by resonance, by an intimacy that transcended the physical. She looked at their joined hands, at the faint shimmer of energy still lingering where they touched. "Your memories," she said, her voice filled with wonder. "So many colors, so much feeling, even in the mundane." Underwear. A faint, hesitant blush of light spread across her cheekbones, visible beneath the iridescence of her skin. He managed a weak chuckle. Told you it was important." She looked up at him, her eyes holding his. The formal mask was gone, replaced by a raw, open emotionality that was breathtaking. "I felt your loneliness," she confessed, her voice barely a whisper. "And your resilience, and strange comfort in trivial things." She squeezed his hand. "It is a balance I did not know existed." The merging hadn't just bound them, it had opened them to each other in a way that words never could. They knew each other now, on a fundamental level, soul to soul. The external threat was momentarily repelled, but the real challenge had just begun. Navigating the implications of this profound alien intimacy, he was no longer just a survivor, he was a partner, bonded to an alien heiress, intertwined with the fate of her ancient culture, his chaotic human energy, now inextricably linked with the sacred balance of the arid shrines. The immediate aftermath was a fragile truce, both external and internal. The shadow sect's assault had been repelled, the amplified resonance of the pairing rites driving them back from the core levels. But Kaelin knew they wouldn't give up. They would regroup, analyze the new energy signature emanating from the Heartstone, and devise a new strategy. Inside the sanctuary, the silence stretched between them, broken only by the faint hum of the monolith and their own unsteady breathing. The raw vulnerability of the merging lingered, a palpable thing in the air. Kaelin pulled her hand from his, moving away slightly, her gaze fixed on the monolith. Her formal mask began to slide back into place, but it was thinner now, cracked around the edges. "The rites are complete," she stated, her voice regaining some of its earlier precision, though a tremor still ran through it. "The bond is forged." "The bond," he repeated. "What exactly does that mean, Kaelin?" She turned back to him, her luminous eyes filled with a complex mix of duty and confusion. "It means our essential energies are now linked through the Heartstone. Our resonance is bound. We are aligned. Still no easy answers. And what does aligned entail? Hand-holding, joint custody of the monolith, fighting the bad guys together? He couldn't help the edge of dry humor, a defense mechanism against the overwhelming intensity of the past few hours. Kalen didn't react with amusement, but with a flicker of something he couldn't quite place. Understanding, appreciation for the absurdity. It entails mutual reliance, she said carefully. Your chaotic resonance, unexpected as it was, provides an unpredictable element the Shadow Sect cannot easily counter. My connection to the ancient energies provides the structure and guidance. We are stronger, together, against them. She paused, her light deepening to a hesitant gold. It also means we are attuned. We can sense each other. He felt a faint echo in his mind, a subtle presence that felt distinctly like her, a warmth that hadn't been there before. He focused on it, pushing back a tentative wave of feeling. It was her confusion, her lingering shock from the merging. You can feel that too, he asked. She nodded slowly. It is the resonance bond. It allows a limited exchange, even across distance within the shrines. The thought was both intriguing and terrifying. No more privacy, not truly, not from her. He looked at her, really looked at her, seeing beyond the luminous alien and the custodian of duty. He saw the flashes of memory from the merging, the lonely child training in these very chambers, the heavy weight of responsibility settling on young shoulders, the quiet yearning for something she couldn't name. He had seen her soul, and she had seen his. Kalen, he said softly, using her name without the formal title for the first time. That was intense, more than I ever imagined. Her gaze softened slightly. For me as well. My path was solitary. The rites were a theoretical obligation, distant in my potential future. I did not anticipate. Me? She gave a small, almost imperceptible nod. A human. Such resilience. And such strange undergarments. A faint, genuine hint of amusement touched her voice. It was the first time he'd heard it. Yeah, well, they work for me, he grinned. The tension hadn't evaporated, but it had shifted. The external threat was still present, the cultural chasm still vast, but something fundamental had changed between them. They were bound. By ritual? Yes, but also by shared vulnerability, by the raw, unfiltered honesty of the merging. He was no longer just a castaway being evaluated. He was her partner, for better or worse, in the ancient struggle for the soul of her world. And strangely, terrifyingly, he felt a flicker of something else. Not just duty, but a protective instinct towards her, towards this fragile, ancient culture she fought so desperately to preserve. His chaotic human energy, his resilience, his stubborn refusal to let things beat him. Maybe, just maybe, that's exactly what the balance needed. The days that followed were a strange blend of continued threat and burgeoning, hesitant closeness. The Shadow Sect launched probing attacks on the shrine perimeter. Testing the amplified resonance shield, Kalen and Jax worked together, moving through the subterranean network, identifying weak points and reinforcing the energy flow. Kalen guided him, her knowledge of the shrine's absolute. Jax, with his practical, problem-solving human mind, found ways to adapt the ancient energy conduits, improvising solutions that sometimes baffled Kalen, but proved effective. Their shared task created a new rhythm between them, a synergy born of necessity. During their work, the attunement between them, the ability to sense each other, deepened. It wasn't full telepathy, but a resonance of emotion, a faint echo of thoughts. He felt her frustration when an energy channel was blocked, her determination when they cleared a path, her quiet concern for his safety when they were near a compromised section. He knew, without words, when she was tired, when she was worried, when a flicker of that unexpected vulnerability surfaced. And she, he suspected, felt his stubborn optimism, his occasional fear masked by dry humor, his growing protectiveness of her in this place. You are thinking about pockets again, she stated one cycle, as they were rerouting energy through a collapsed passage. He stopped, grinning, guilty. A secure place for my stylus would make this easier. Her light pulsed faintly. Perhaps a modification could be made. To your robe. A small pouch, integrated with the resonance weave. He stared at her. You do that? For pockets? A faint, rare smile touched her lips, a subtle softening of the luminous lines around her mouth. It is a practical adaptation. Your practicality has proved useful. It was a small thing, a concession born of shared struggle. But it felt significant, a bridge being built across the cultural chasm. One evening, after reinforcing a critical section of the outer shield, they rested in a small, hidden alcove. The air was still, the low hum of the shrines a constant backdrop. Kaelin sat across from him, her glow soft in the dim light. The shadow sex attacks, friend-changing, she murmured. They are seeking a different point of entry, one tied to the resonance bond itself. Jax felt a chill. You mean, they're trying to use us? She nodded, her eyes troubled. Your unique resonance, combined with mine, Jed, it has drawn their attention in a new way. They seek to corrupt the bond, to turn our connection into a vulnerability. He thought about the merging, raw, unfiltered intimacy of it. The idea of that being twisted, corrupted, was horrifying. How do we stop them? We strengthen the bond, she said, her gaze meeting his, through shared resonance, through understanding, the trust. She reached out, her hand hovering between them. He understood. Not just trust born of necessity, but a deeper personal trust. He took her hand. This time, the contact was different. Not the overwhelming torrent of the merging, but a gentle flow, a quiet communion. He felt her presence, solid and steady, a counterpoint to his own restless energy. It's still weird, he admitted softly. All of this, the shrines, the energy, being bound to an alien princess. Heiress, she corrected gently. Ritual-bound heiress. That. He squeezed her hand. But it's not entirely bad. Her light warmed, a silent response. In the depths of the ancient, humming shrines, surrounded by the echoes of a forgotten past and the looming threat of a corrupted future, they sat hand in hand, two vastly different beings linked by a ritual neither had sought, finding solace and strength in the unexpected intimacy of their forced bond. The fight was far from over, but for the first time he didn't feel entirely alone. The shadow sect's strategy became clear. They were targeting the surface shrines connected to the network, attempting to destabilize the energy flow and create a feedback loop that would overload the heartstone or corrupt the resonance bond itself. This forced Kaelin and Jax to leave the safety of the deep sanctuary and venture back to the surface, moving between the ancient stone structures scattered across the arid landscape under the alien sun. It was dangerous work, exposed to the elements and the ever-present threat of the shadow sect. They traveled at night, the shimmering robes providing camouflage against the starlit sands, guiding their way by the faint glow of the shrine's energy lines visible only to Kaelin. Jax, with his human eyes, spotted mundane threats Kaelin might miss: unstable rock formations, dust devils that could hide movement, traces of alien vehicles in the sand. He was her eyes in the physical world, she was his guide in the world of energy and resonance. The attunement between them deepened further during these journeys. He could anticipate her movements, sense her exhaustion, feel the surge of her focus. As she worked to stabilize a shrine, she in turn would subtly guide his steps away from unseen dangers, a silent warning echoing in his mind. One night, while tending to a small defiled shrine near a jagged rock outcrop, they were ambushed. Shadow sect infiltrators, clad in dark, non-reflective armor, emerged from the rocks. They moved with a chilling precision, their own energy signatures muted, almost invisible against the chaotic background they cultivated. Kaelin reacted instantly, her formal grace transforming into lethal efficiency. She wielded her staff, not as a ceremonial object, but a weapon, channeling the shrine's energy into focused blasts of light that struck with concussive force. Jax was caught off guard, scrambling for cover. His only weapons were his wits and the environmental tools on his tattered suit, none of which were designed for combat. "Get down," he yelled, pressing himself against a rock face. Kaelin was outnumbered, but she fought with a fierce determination he hadn't fully appreciated until now. She was a warrior as well as a custodian. An infiltrator moved to flank her, a dark blade raised. Without thinking, Jax grabbed a fist-sized rock, hurled it with all his might, and yelled an earth obscenity. The rock bounced harmlessly off the infiltrator's armor, but the unexpected human sound and action distracted them for a split second. That was all Kaylin needed. She spun, staff sweeping, sending a blast of energy that threw the infiltrator back against the rocks with a sickening crunch. But the others were closing in. Kaylin was forced to expend more energy than she could spare, pushing the shrine's resonance to its limits to defend herself and Jax. He saw her glow flicker, the energy draining from her. He felt her exhaustion through their bond, sharp and sudden. "Kaylin," he shouted, scrambling out from cover. "Fall back. The shield is failing." She hesitated, trying to cover his movement, but one of the infiltrators got past her, lunging towards him. Jax instinctively raised his arms, expecting impact, but instead he felt a surge of energy from Kaylin. Channeled through their bond, a wave of protective force slammed into the infiltrator, sending them reeling back, stumbling over the sand. It wasn't a direct weapon, but a defensive pulse, fueled by her connection to him. Kaylin seized the opportunity, blasting the remaining infiltrators with a final burst of energy, before turning and grabbing Jax's arm. "We must go," she urged, pulling him towards a hidden crevice in the rocks. They retreated into the subterranean passage, leaving the silence of the defiled shrine behind them. Once deep within the earth, safe for the moment, Kaylin collapsed against the cold stone wall, panting, her light dimming precariously. Jax knelt beside her, checking for injuries. Her physical form seemed intact, but the energy drain was severe. "You shouldn't have done that," he said, his voice rough with concern. "You risked everything." "You are part of the bond," she whispered, her voice weak. "Your protection is necessary. Necessary, not just duty, but a deeper acknowledgement of their connection." He reached out, hesitantly, and placed his hand against her cheek. Her skin was cool, the faint iridescence muted. "Thanks," he said softly, "for saving my ass." Again, a faint, tired smile touched her lips. The shared trauma, the brush with death, had stripped away the last vestiges of formal distance. In the flickering light of her dimming glow, he saw only Kaylin, the ritual-bound heiress who had saved a sarcastic human and was now bound to him by cosmic law and shared struggle. And in that moment, surrounded by the ancient stone and the humming energy, the vast cultural chasm seemed a little smaller, a little less daunting. After the ambush, Kaylin needed time to recover her energy. They retreated to a small, hidden chamber deep within the network, a place of healing resonance. As Kaylin rested, her light slowly regaining its strength, Jax watched over her. The forced inactivity allowed the emotional weight of their situation to settle. They had faced death together, their bond tested and proven in combat. The intimate knowledge shared during the merging now felt less like an intrusion and more like a foundation. The attunement between them was a constant, subtle current, allowing them to communicate without speaking, sharing feelings across the short distance that separated them. He felt her weariness, her lingering fear, and something else, a quiet gratitude, a nascent affection. And she felt his steady presence, his watchfulness, the unfamiliar comfort of his human warmth in the cool, silent chamber. One cycle, Kaylin's eyes fluttered open. Her light was stronger, a soft, steady gold. She looked at him, really looked at him, her gaze clear and direct. "Jax," she said, his name a soft sound on her tongue. "The shadow sect, they grow bolder. The attack was a test. They know the bond is strong, but they perceive it as a weakness they can exploit. They believe they can break it." He moved closer, sitting beside her. "They don't understand it," he said. "They see it as a weapon or a vulnerability. They don't see the connection." She was silent for a long moment, her hand reaching out to cover his where it rested on the stone floor between them. "No," she agreed softly. "They do not understand the nature of true resonance. It is not control but harmony." Her fingers laced with his, her touch gentle, tentative. The resonance between them flowed, not demanding, but comforting. "I felt your fear during the attack," she confessed, her voice low, "and your anger, but also your protectiveness. For me." He tightened his grip on her hand. "Yeah, kinda hard not to feel protective when someone's trying to carve you up." She managed a small, genuine smile. "Your humor is unexpected, and Grounding. The word felt significant. He, the chaotic human, was grounding the ancient ritual-bound heiress. You saved me too, Kaelin. More than once. It is my duty, she said, but the word lacked its former coldness. It was softened by genuine feeling. More than duty, he countered softly. He looked into her luminous eyes, seeing the reflection of his own face, worn and tired, but held within the alien gold of her gaze. After the merging, feeling everything, seeing everything, it changed things. She nodded slowly. Yes, it did. The unspoken hung between them, the depth of intimacy they had shared, the way it had irrevocably altered their relationship. They were bound not just by ritual, but by a profound, shared vulnerability. The threat of the shadow sect was still external, but the true drama was unfolding here, in the quiet intimacy of the healing chamber, in the tentative connection between their joined hands. What happens now? He asked, the question encompassing not just the external threat, but the future of their impossible bond. Kaelin met his gaze, her eyes filled with a newfound resolve, tempered by the lingering vulnerability. Now, she said, her voice stronger, clearer, we face them, together. As bound, as partners. Partner. The word no longer sounded clinical. It sounded like a promise. A heavy, dangerous, utterly unexpected promise. He squeezed her hand again. A silent affirmation. They were two halves of an improbable whole, forged in crisis and bound by a resonance neither had sought. And the fight for the soul of the shrines, and for their own intertwined future, was just beginning. Their strategy shifted from purely defensive to strategic countermeasures. Armed with Kaelin's knowledge of the energy network and Jax's practical ingenuity, they began to anticipate the shadow sect's moves, laying traps within the shrine's resonance fields, creating localized disruptions that interfered with the infiltrators' ability to navigate the deeper levels. They were a formidable team, their bond allowing for a level of coordination that surprised even Kaelin. He would sense her intent, a flicker of focus or anticipation through their link, and intuitively understand what she needed him to do. She, in turn, seemed to understand his human limitations and strengths, guiding him to where he could be most effective. The shadow sect grew frustrated. Their direct assaults were repelled, their attempts to corrupt the bond thwarted by its unexpected strength and harmony. They resorted to more desperate measures, targeting the surface communities that still held tenuous loyalty to the custodians, attempting to draw Kaelin out. This forced them to move more openly, venturing onto the surface during the day, albeit disguised within the shimmering robes and sticking to the less populated arid regions. It was during one of these excursions that they encountered a patrol of shadow sect warriors. They were caught in the open, miles from the safety of a shrine entrance. The warriors were heavily armed, their energy signatures crackling with aggressive intent. Retreat was impossible. The only option was to fight. Kaelin raised her staff, its core pulsing with contained energy. They intend to capture us, she stated, her voice calm despite the danger. To study the bond, to break it. Jax stood beside her, his heart pounding, the absurdity of facing alien warriors with his bare hands and a worn-out survival suit under his fancy robe not lost on him. But looking at Kaelin, at the unwavering light in her eyes, at the silent strength flowing between them through their bond, the fear receded, replaced by a fierce determination. Let's give him hell, he muttered, pulling the modified robe tighter around himself, checking the location of the small integrated pouch Kaelin had woven for his few tools. She gave him a quick, sharp glance, a hint of something fierce and approving in her expression. The Shadow Sect warriors advanced, blades and energy projectors raised. Kaelin met their charge head-on, a whirlwind of light and motion, deflecting blasts and striking with her staff. Jax didn't have her power, but he had agility and unpredictability. He used the terrain, darting behind rocks, creating diversions, throwing handfuls of sand to momentarily blind the armored warriors. He was a chaotic element they struggled to track. Through their bond, Kaelin guided him, not with thoughts but with impulses. A sudden urge to move left, a sense of an opening in their formation. He moved instinctively, trusting the connection between them. He saw a warrior closing in on Kaelin's flank. Before she could react, He scrambled up a rock, leaped onto the warrior's back, wrapping his arms around their helmeted head. The warrior staggered, momentarily disoriented by the unexpected human parasite. It wasn't elegant, but it was effective. Kalen seized the opportunity, unleashing a powerful energy blast that incapacitated the warrior Jax was clinging to, sending them both tumbling to the sand. Jax landed hard but scrambled away breathless. Kalen finished off the remaining attackers with swift, decisive strikes. She stood over the fallen warriors, her staff crackling, her light blazing with righteous fury. Then she turned to him, her chest rising and falling, her glow slowly settling. Jax, covered in sand and sweat, pulled himself up, trying to catch his breath. "Well," he wheezed, "that was exciting." Kalen walked over to him, her expression unreadable. She reached out a hand, not to offer assistance, but to touch his face. Brushing away a streak of dirt, her fingers lingered on his skin, her touch sending a jolt of warmth through him. Her luminous eyes searched his, filled with a profound emotion that words couldn't capture. Through their bond, he felt her relief, her respect, and something else. A surge of powerful, undeniable feeling. "You fought with unexpected ferocity," she murmured, her voice soft, intimate. "And you trusted the bond." He leaned into her touch, closing his eyes for a brief moment, savoring the connection. "Shai," said, his voice low. "I trust you, Kalen." He opened his eyes and met her gaze. In the middle of the arid sands, surrounded by fallen alien warriors, the fragile bud of something deeper blossomed between them. The fight for survival had forced them together. The ritual had bound them. But the shared danger, the trust forged in battle, had ignited something far more profound. They returned to the deep shrines, the air thick with the scent of ozone and ancient stone. The victory against the Shadow Sect patrol, while small, was significant. It proved the strength of their bond, not just as a defensive mechanism, but as a dynamic force capable of active resistance. The attunement between them, honed in battle, was now a constant, comforting presence. They no longer needed words to communicate complex ideas or emotions. A shared feeling, a subtle shift in resonance. Enough. This deeper connection permeated every aspect of their shared life within the shrines. Meals were eaten in comfortable silence, their presence a quiet solace to each other. They explored hidden chambers together, Kalen sharing the history etched in the stone, Jax offering observations from his human perspective, finding parallels and contrasts that sparked unexpected insights for both of them. One evening, after tending to the hearthstone, its low hum a steady pulse through the chamber, they sat together near the monolith. The silence wasn't empty, but filled with the unspoken communication that flowed between them. Kalen's light was soft, warm, a golden pool in the dimness. Jax leaned his head back against the cool stone of the monolith, feeling its ancient energy resonate with the bond. "What happens when this is over?" he asked softly, the question hanging in the quiet air. "When the Shadow Sect is defeated, or something happens to one of us." The thought was stark, but it needed to be voiced. Kalen was silent for a long moment. He felt a wave of sadness ripple through their bond, a deep current of ancient loss and potential future heartache. "The bond," she said finally, her voice barely a whisper, "is permanent. Forged by the heartstone, it is woven into the fabric of our beings. It cannot be broken, only diminished if the heartstone is corrupted, if one resonance is extinguished." Extinguished. The word hung heavy. "So, if I die," he said, his voice steady, "you'd still feel the something, an absence," she confirmed, her light flickering with pain. "A void where your resonance was. A part of the bond would remain, a memory within the heartstone, within me." He reached for her hand, finding it immediately. Their fingers laced together, the familiar warmth spreading. "And what about living?" "If we both make it through this, what then? I'm human, Kalen. I don't belong here." "Not really." She squeezed his hand. "You belong here," she said, with quiet conviction. "The heartstone chose you. The ancestors bow through the heartstone. They accept your resonance. You are part of the balance now, part of the shrines. But my home, my people, the bond, the stretches," she said, her luminous eyes fixed on him. "It connects us, across distance, across everything." She paused, her gaze searching his face in the dim light. Does your home call to you with the same strength as the bond? He thought about it. His home planet, his old life. They felt distant now, like echoes from another existence. This world, this ancient sanctuary. This woman. They feel it, they were here now. Real. And the bond, the strange, powerful, intimate connection they shared, was the strongest force in his life. It calls, he admitted, but not like this. He looked at their joined hands, the faint shimmer of energy pulsing between them. This, this is louder. A faint, soft smile touched Kaylin's lips, a smile that reached her luminous eyes. Then perhaps, your home is here now. She raised their joined hands, bringing his hand to her cheek. Her skin was smooth, cool, and the faint iridescence swirled beneath his touch. Your resonance, she whispered. It is beautiful, strong, unyielding, like your spirit. He closed his eyes, leaning into her touch, feeling the depth of connection that flowed between them. They were bound by ritual, by duty, by shared trauma, but something deeper had grown between them. Something that felt a lot like love, transcending species, culture, and the vastness of space. The future was uncertain. The threat of the shadow sect still loomed. But in this moment, in the heart of the ancient shrines, bound to an alien woman by a cosmic ritual, Jax felt a sense of belonging he had never experienced before. This strange, dangerous, beautiful place was his home now. And Kaylin, his ritual-bound heiress, his partner in resonance and in battle, was his future. The final confrontation with the shadow sect was inevitable. Their desperation grew as their attempts to break the bond and corrupt the Heartstone failed. They launched a full-scale assault on the Heartstone chamber itself, breaching the outer defenses with sheer force, determined to seize control or destroy everything. Kaylin and Jax met them there, standing before the monolith, the heart of the shrines. The chamber was filled with chaotic energy, the shadow sect's dark resonance clashing violently with the pure ancient energy of the Heartstone. The air crackled, stone groaned, and the light around them pulsed erratically. The shadow sect leader, a towering figure clad in ornate dark armor, sneered, their voice a distorted rumble through a translator. The abomination, the human parasite, has corrupted the heiress. The bond is a perversion. Kaylin stepped forward, her light blazing, her staff held high. You mistake harmony for corruption. You seek to control what must only be served. Your path is one of ruin. The battle began, a chaotic clash of energy and force. Kaylin fought with the power of the shrines flowing through her, amplified by her bond with Jax. She was a beacon of pure energy, repelling the dark resonance of the shadow sect. Jax, with his practical mind and newfound understanding of the energy flows, worked to disrupt the shadow sect's formations, targeting their energy conduits and creating diversions that broke their synchronized attacks. He was no match for them physically, but his unpredictable movements and ability to sense their intent through Kaylin's connection made him a persistent, infuriating obstacle. The shadow sect leader focused on Kaylin, seeing her as the primary threat. As they engaged in a duel of raw energy, other warriors moved to surround Jax, aiming to eliminate the parasite and weaken the bond. Jax dodged and weaved, using the pillars for cover, throwing rocks, anything to buy time. He felt Kaylin struggle through their bond, the strain she was under. He had to do something more. He remembered Kaylin's words about his chaotic energy being a shield. He remembered how it had disrupted their resonance probes. He had to amplify it. He took a deep breath, focusing not on fear, but on the pure, messy, unpredictable essence of being human. His stubbornness, his humor, his defiance, his unexpected love for this alien woman and her strange world. He projected it outwards through his side of the bond, through the resonance weave of his robes, creating a localized field of pure, unadulterated human chaos. It wasn't an energy weapon, but it was potent. The shadow sect warriors surrounding him recoiled, their synchronized movements faltering, their internal systems screaming against the dissonant frequency of his amplified resonance. It was like trying to listen to ancient, sacred music while someone blasted heavy metal next to your ear. Kaylin sensed his action, a flash of surprise and fierce pride rippling through their bond. Seizing the moment, She unleashed a surge of pure heartstone energy, a wave of cleansing light that swept through the chamber, overwhelming the shadow sect's dark resonance. The warriors screamed as their corrupted energy was stripped away, their armor cracking, their forms flickering. The leader, weakened and exposed, tried to retreat, but Kaelin was relentless. She pursued them, channeling the full power of the Heartstone and their combined bond into a final devastating blast. The leader disintegrated, their dark energy dissolving into nothingness. The remaining Shadow Sect warriors, their connection to their leader and their corrupted power severed, faltered, breaking rank and fleeing back into the passages. Their threat neutralized. At least for now, the chamber fell silent, save for the low, steady hum of the Heartstone, its light now blazing, strong and pure. Kaelin stood panting, her own glow vibrant with power. Jax stumbled towards her, exhausted but exhilarated. He had faced alien warriors and won, not with weapons but with the sheer, disruptive force of being himself. The Shadow Sect had been defeated, their hold on the surface broken, their ability to threaten the deep shrines annihilated. The ancient sanctuary was safe, its balance restored, its future secured, at least for a time. In the quiet aftermath of the battle, Kaelin and Jax stood before the Heartstone, its light filling the chamber with warmth and peace. The air hummed with a steady, harmonious energy, a testament to the strength of the bond they had forged. Kaelin turned to him, her luminous eyes filled with a depth of emotion he had never expected to see. The formal mask was gone completely, replaced by an open vulnerability and a profound affection that resonated through their bond. "We did it," she whispered, her voice soft, filled with wonder. "We saved the shrines." "Saved us." He reached out, gently touching her cheek. Her skin was warm, the iridescence soft and beautiful. "Judge Dak," he said, a wide, genuine smile spreading across his face. "We did." He still couldn't quite believe it. A cargo pilot from Earth, an alien ritual-bound heiress, bound together by a crash and a cosmic ritual, fighting alien bad guys with resonance and chaotic human energy. It was the craziest story he'd ever be a part of. Kaelin leaned into his touch, her glow deepening to a warm, radiant gold. "Your resonance," she murmured. "It is vibrant. It is life." She looked at him, her gaze holding his, and he saw the future reflected in her luminous eyes. It wasn't the life he had planned, filled with cargo runs and lonely space stations. It was something far stranger, far more dangerous, and infinitely more meaningful. He was bound to this world, this ancient culture, to this woman. He was part of the balance now. "What happens now?" he asked again, the question having taken on a different weight since the last time he'd asked it. It wasn't about survival or duty anymore. It was about choice, about what they would build together in the quiet peace that had fallen over the shrines. Kaelin smiled, a slow, beautiful unfolding of light and emotion. "Now," she said, her voice filled with a quiet hope, "we are free, free to explore what this bond means. Not just for the shrines, but for Taunus." She took his hand, bringing it to her lips, pressing a soft, warm kiss against his palm. The contact sent a jolt of pure, unadulterated happiness through him, a feeling that resonated through their bond and echoed the steady pulse of the Heartstone. "My home is here," he said, his voice firm, certain. "With you, if you'll have me." Her luminous eyes softened, her smile widening. "You are already here, Jax," she said, her voice laced with affection. "My bound, my partner, my chaotic human." She leaned closer, their foreheads touching, and the resonance between them sang, a beautiful, complex harmony of alien light and human spirit, echoing through the ancient stone of the shrines, a testament to an impossible love forged in the heart of an alien world. The journey had begun with a crash and a question about his underwear, but it had led him here to the most unexpected, most profound connection of his life. He was home.